All right, so welcome back, guys. Today we have here Alejandro Villasmil. Is that correct?
Yep, you got it.
Thanks. He'll be sharing with us some insights in terms of what it means to be a data scientist to Medtronic, since there's different divisions within biomedical. And I'd like to take the opportunity today to bring you insights in terms of what those perspectives would be once you graduate from BME, those different options or career pathways you can take. For a data scientist or a data engineer, what does a typical day look like in that field?
Yeah, so I guess for me specifically, I start off my days, I tend to have, as most people do, a list of different priorities, because normally you're handling and juggling quite a bit of tasks at the same time. So it's important to be able to prioritize those accordingly. But in terms of, and then after I have my priorities set straight, which is probably the most important thing, first and foremost, you're not wasting any time right from the get-go. Then you sort of get into it. But in terms of like the technical work and what you're sort of doing and seeing, I'd say for the most part, it's a lot of, data ingestion. I mean, I guess it depends on what side, because my team specifically within Medtronic, where it's two teams that work in conjunction with each other pretty closely. So my team specifically focuses on the algorithm development, while the other team that we work with closely focuses on data cleaning, data ingestion that's then fed on to us. So I do see a good amount of data to begin with. So like a lot of pre-processing, data wrangling that goes along with it. And then after that, there's a good amount of, different algorithm development techniques that are tried like on a daily basis, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and reporting those metrics back to like leadership or key stakeholders, and trying to figure out, what's the best attack plan for a specific data set or for a specific initiative that the company has. So it's a lot of back and forth with regards to that. Both, it's very iterative in a sense. You get data sets pretty recurrently. And then whenever you have new data, it's on to the get-go again, trying old algorithms, new algorithms, so on and so forth. So it's a lot of iterations, I'd say.
Yeah. So I guess you do experiment a lot with code, and in particular, what's your favorite code or most practice code that's used in your field?
Like language?
I guess yeah, you could say it's called language. I know Python is very popular. Is that what you guys use?
Yeah, it's primarily actually Python and MATLAB. It's a nice mix. So I know MATLAB is not too common within the data science field, specifically like in industry, but it is pretty common when it comes to any sort of signal processing that's done, because MATLAB makes that quite easy on the user. So it's a mix of Python and MATLAB. We do quite a bit of signal processing, so that's the reason why there's a hybrid situation going on there.
Okay. So I guess there's still hope for me, because coming from most students here at FIU, they know a lot of MATLAB, but not so many Python.
Right.
And so I'm picking up on some of the gaps that's necessary to apply them in the industry. But that's good to hear. And totally. I look forward to applying that. So MATLAB and data signaling for my master's, since I'll be doing some therapeutic technology, including some neurosignaling, including that as well.
Nice. I was also in the same boat. I mean, throughout school, MATLAB was, like the language of choice for a lot of the project-based classes. I did take some electives that, allowed me to familiarize myself with Python and whatnot. And that's sort of what sparked that interest. And then after that, I did a lot of like independent learning. And then my first job in industry, I was able to dabble a little bit more with Python as well. And then through the years, just kept, fortifying those skills. It's pretty cool.
I guess I'll piggyback a little bit on the Python. Is there a particular source that you recommend students can use to learn Python?
So I guess specifically, when I was going through courses, these courses online, I think I relied primarily on Coursera. Udemy is also a good one. I also got a lot of books too. There's this one, I forget, there's like a gecko on the cover. It's like a yellow and black gecko.
Okay.
But that one is more specifically for machine learning, not so much the fundamentals of Python. So it assumes you already have that foundation. But yeah, there's tons of great books that you can look into too.
Some other ones I've heard that are pretty good resources are LinkedIn Learning and what's it called, Skillshare.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, LinkedIn Learning is great as well. I also looked into that as well.
By any chance, when you're trying to look for jobs, did you apply to other companies? If so, how was that interview process like? If you know a perspective on that.
So is that with respect to just specifically like data science related careers?
I guess so,
yeah. Okay. So because my first job was not so much data science related from the position itself was not a data science centered role, but I sort of branched out within that position to sort of get involved with those data science projects. And that's what sort of like allowed me to work on that for my first job. But then for my second job, I wanted, which is where I am now at Medtronic, I knew I wanted a job that focused entirely on data science and machine learning. So while I was doing that, I just send out a good amount of applications, as job searchers typically do. Just shotgun it, send out as much as you can, and then see who replies. But yeah, the interview process is pretty rigorous. Most places get back to you with some sort of problem or some sort of mini project that takes a couple hours or so to get through, just to see the way that you think, the way you reason through a problem. Not so much to see if you get it right. I mean, that's a plus, but more so just to see the way you reason and solve problems. And then more just just getting to know you on a personal level, as most interviews do as well.
Yeah, so I guess there's a lot of behavioral questions that they interject in terms to understand would you make a nice teammate or a nice addition to the team, since there's a lot of dynamic that goes on in the team setting.
Yeah, totally. And that's a huge component, because one of the things I love most about my position right now is the team itself, and you can tell that they do a good job in recruiting candidates, because everyone is great to work with. They're very skilled and they're great people. So, and it's also a very diverse team, which is like another reason why I love it so much. I feel like everyone is from somewhere different across the world, which blew my mind, because my last position was nowhere near that. So I really like working in that diverse environment, which brings a lot of different mindsets just into the equation, and leads to unique solutions at the end of the day.
That really resonates, because I actually recently had an internship, and just like you mentioned, we were global. So we were in a global enterprise of Boston Scientific, and we were connecting with teams across from the pond in France, over in Ireland, and then even for some manufacturing plants in Coyo, Costa Rica. So when it comes to making solutions, it's definitely a team effort, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
What is one particular skill that you learn in industry that you wouldn't have in school, or something that just clicked once you got to industry that maybe you didn't catch in school, or is not emphasized?
Yeah, I guess two main ones come to mind. One of them, I guess, is more technical, job-based, and the other one is more just life in general. So I'd say the job-related technical one is mainly ingesting big databases and large amounts of data, messy data. Because during school, I mean, you're usually playing with toy data sets or whatnot that aren't realistic. But once you hit industry and you're messing around with signals and data that are coming from millions of sensors across the world, or wherever the data is coming from, it gets messy real quick. And for me, at least, it was a big wow factor, just to be able to see the sheer amount of data that we were dealing with. So that was something that clicked. And then I guess one one other one was just general finances and stuff like that. So once I started working and whatnot, just I guess investing, saving money, all this stuff that you don't really learn in school. I had to sort of read up on it, read books, read internet resources and whatnot to try and familiarize myself with that. So that's also pretty important stuff that you don't really
That's true.
Don't teach you.
So I guess definitely for finances, that's not taught that much at school. I got to pick up some skills myself outside of school, and it comes also down to finding a mentor in that space that's not related to school at all. So to that extent, two things you can learn about outside of school: definitely finances, and as well as some technical applications. So I guess, what do you enjoy most about your work? I know it's definitely involving a lot of hats, being able to problem solve, troubleshoot, and then know some coding as well. So how does what do you enjoy most about that? What's most rewarding for you?
Yeah, so I guess the most rewarding thing to me, at least, and this applies, I guess, to everyone that's interested in this call, at least, because we're all within BME, is just the direct effects that it has on patients and whatnot. At least for me, it works specifically within the diabetes industry, and just giving patients that liberty to just go about their daily life without having to worry about pricking their finger, getting their blood glucose, and doing things as things were done in the past, and just allowing them to live freely and flexibly by allowing them to use our technology is really neat. And being able to see my work directly impact that, and hearing back from the FDA when we submit a certain algorithm, we hear back, and it's a good response. That's also definitely really rewarding as well, because your work is directly having an impact on everything that's happening. So pretty cool.
I think one plus from working in industry is that you can get to see the results of your work pretty immediate, or at least a bit more if you're more on a way quicker turnout rate than if you go into research. Particularly, it's always a process of continuous improvements, and even more so if you're doing algorithms or software that goes into hardware or electronics. By by any chance, when you were considering the interview process or the hiring process, did you negotiate salary, or well, how is that? And or at least what would you recommend students look into?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, negotiation is something that everyone should definitely keep in mind that a lot of people tend to overlook. But I'd say in addition, I'll get into like my personal experience after, but like I'd say in addition to just salary, there's a lot of other different components that can be negotiated. Just keep that in mind, like bonuses, remote work, for example, if you want to be flexible with that. A lot of different perks, benefits that you could also negotiate with your package that aren't necessarily, your yearly salary. So everyone's case is unique to them. So make sure you like leverage whatever you need and try and get the most out of that. For me specifically, it was a pretty big jump in salary from my last job, so I wasn't too picky. But I guess the thing that was on the table for negotiation was I was with my last job for 2 years, and that's around like the mark that you go in as a senior engineer. And at Medtronic, you have engineer 1, engineer 2, and then senior. So I guess what was on the table was whether I would go in as 2 or senior. So I try to like negotiate that, but we compromised that, I'd go in, work for a year, and then if everything worked or to plan, then that following year we could work through a promotion or whatnot. So things like that are also things that can be negotiated as well. Like, yeah, just keep an open mind. Yeah.
Those are great insights. And I guess it would also depend on the company, because some companies are okay with negotiating salary upfront, right. Whereas for others, packages, they're pretty much standard for a lot of employees. But that's a good insight. And also, in terms of annual performance reviews, I understand there's some annual performance reviews that managers usually do or companies usually do on a continual interval to make sure companies or employees are delivering that progress for future promotions. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and they happen more frequently. I mean, at least at my company, the company before, but they happen frequently. I mean, you're usually working with your manager. Usually have one-on-ones, depends on the company with your manager, but those technical reviews, I think happen like once a quarter.
I think they also take time to map out your career. They discuss that with you, correct? Or like future endeavors you want to take in the company.
Yeah, totally. And that's something that's also like not only touched on during the hiring process, but also like once you're onboarded, usually if it's not your manager, you usually have a mentor, and you would work with them to sort of like, make sure your long-term goals are clear to the company, what you want to get from it. And, that transparency is pretty key. And that's something that I feel like I've gotten at Medtronic. So
awesome. Glad to hear.
To make sure.
And crossing your fingers, it goes well for you. What skills would you recommend students if they want to enter the space to develop for an internship or for a potential position in data science?
So what skills to look into during their undergrad to make sure they can secure something? Yeah. So within data science, definitely you want to have some sort of, you want to have a strong background with, even though, I mean, it's important to have it and it gives you a good foundation, but a good foundation with linear algebra and math. I know it's not too much fun at times, but it's really important to know. Just, I guess, big data class, I'm not sure if that's offered, but that's also really, really neat and important to know. Signal processing is key. I'm trying to think of some other ones. And I guess specifically because I'm thinking back to one class I took that sort of really helped me out. It was not so much a hard technical skill, but it was engineering negotiations. And it was just essentially like a negotiations class, which was really neat. It was like sort of like an outlier in terms of like the classes I was taking at the time. It was a nice relief from all the project math-based classes. But that taught me quite a bit. And I'd like to this day still leverage some of those concepts to like negotiate anything in the workplace. I mean, personal life and like anything. So pretty neat stuff as well.
Yeah, I also find that as you take classes, there are some classes that are really underrated and most people take for granted. In particular, I think one class that would really help a lot of engineering students is marketing, because you can be very smart but have no way to communicate those ideas. And in terms of business ears, it usually falls flat. Business people and engineers communicate differently. Yeah,
that's a great point. I mean, you can have a gem of an idea, but if you don't have the ability to communicate, it's just gonna stay hidden inside your mind.
All right. Can data science and research be applicable as an undergrad?
So you're saying, like, is it possible to participate in research that leverages data science?
Yes.
In other words, okay. Totally. I didn't have that experience directly, but I knew of labs at my school that leveraged a lot of data science techniques and skill sets as well. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of there was a robotics lab which relied heavily on like deep learning models and whatnot. So that was pretty neat. I had a friend that was a part of that one. Yeah, I think yeah, you can definitely like explore. I mean, there's lots of different applications of it to robotics, to informatics, all sorts of different applications. So yeah, just important to like explore all the different research labs out there.
Yeah, so what are the labs available at the school and connecting with those PIs if they like their research? What is one skill, just to make it fair, that you learned in school that you wouldn't have in industry, or that you at least formulated in school?
That's a good question. So you like usually you get asked the other one, but not that one.
Yeah, just to make it fair.
Yeah. School. I guess. Actually, yeah, I think probably the biggest one is just being able to take in material and like just comprehend information being thrown your way. I would say most of the time is overlooked. Just being able to focus in on what's important. Should I like look at everything? Should I condense it into the most important parts? But being able to like figure out, all right, what's the most important things? Let me focus on this, and then this is what I'm going to be able to use thereafter is a pretty important skill set.
So I guess what are some ways that students particularly can polish themselves while in undergrad? I think you alluded to this before, but if there's anything you want to add to it, feel free to go ahead.
So yeah, I think if there's any, don't be scared to branch out in terms of like any skills or any sort of skills or interests that you're pondering about like learning, or just diving into it, to utilize those electives, I would say, effectively. So I mean, at least in my personal experience, if there was something I was really interested in, I would leverage those electives in order to take those classes that I was really interested in, as opposed to I mean, like sometimes it was necessary to take like an easier class to like take off like some of the load.
Strategically.
But just exactly. So yeah, it's just use those electives well, and then also like there's tons of resources online, as I mentioned before. But yeah, so like using those resources to make sure you touch on every single one of your different interests or skills that you like.
Sounds good. I remember many times where I decided to take an easier class. That's not occasionally because of a strategic choice, but it also complemented things I wanted to learn at the time. So I guess what's your favorite professor moment throughout college, or at least here at FIU during your short time?
Favorite professor moment?
Yeah, or funniest professor moment.
Okay, so I think the funniest one would be, it was for a data-driven modeling class I was taking during my master's, and he was a great professor. It was like honestly one of the best professors I've ever had. But so I used to go to the university gym to work out, and so like sometimes do laps in the pool. And one day I was there with my friend just doing laps, and then we got out of the pool, and there was the professor in the smallest like Speedo you would ever imagine, and it was just like we made eye contact, and it was just like a situation that you would not expect to see a professor. So I guess my definition of success.
Yeah, what would be success for you?
I think for me specifically, I'd say it's I mean, it's hard to define success in terms of just like work, but because there's so many different facets to one's life. But I guess specifically, since this is professionally related, I'd say making sure that
it could be a holistic view if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, so I guess for me, it's just primarily making sure that like my effort that I'm putting into whatever I'm doing is having a direct impact in like making first and foremost myself better, and then also, I mean, that sounds kind of selfish. No, like, I mean, like sometimes you have to take care of yourself before you take care of others, but you like yourself, and then also making sure that your efforts are affecting others in a good way. So, and like helping them out and making their lives even better than what they were before. So I guess I had a direct relationship to what I do at work, and then in my personal life as well. I try and keep that mentality in everything I do.
Yeah, I feel particularly, I feel much better when I'm getting my sleep. So I definitely need that. I'm very selfish when it comes to sleep. But on top of professionally and also things that I do for other people, I enjoy the things I do, and I always like to see impact that I can and value I can deliver. My by any chance, do you read any self-improvement books or any books in general? If so, what's your favorite one?
Yeah, totally. I actually do. Actually, like, I would say not an avid reader, but I do read on occasion. And when I do read, they're usually like self-improvement books.
Okay.
And like my girlfriend tends to give me a lot of like, just like make fun of me. So just jokingly, because she likes to read a lot of like fantasy books and whatnot, and I'm more of like, you know, the realistic, practical self-improvement books. But I do like those a lot. Also listen to a lot of podcasts. So I guess I'll give you guys one good podcast and I guess one good book that's sort of resonated with me that I've read in the recent past. In terms of podcast, it's like an NPR spinoff. It's called How I Built This. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty popular podcast. You guys have probably heard of it.
I remember, yeah.
Listened to it.
I do remember.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. He interviews founders and CEOs from different companies, listens to their stories, and just asks them questions about their journey, which is pretty neat. And then at the end, he asks everyone this one question, which is, I guess, where they are now, would they attribute most of their success to? Like sort of like what percentage, how would they split it? In terms of like how like would they attribute to where they are now to luck or to hard work and perseverance? And it's interesting to see because I would say most of them say that the majority of that share goes towards the luck side of things. So pretty interesting to see. And then in terms of books, I think it's called like the 4-Hour Work Week. My friend recommended it. It's by Tim Ferriss. I guess it was a good book. I guess one thing that I like directly applied, just because like I guess I noticed I was already doing it, but then reading about it sort of like made me cognizant of it and made me like even use it even more, was I think it's called the Pareto like principle. So it's essentially that you get like 80% of the outcomes come from 20% of the causes. So that's just I guess directly applied to work, that 80% of your like deliverables and just 80% of your impact that you're causing on at your workplace come from only 20% of your efforts. So being able to like be aware of that, that's true, really allows you to like free up your time and do things that are, you know, just work more efficiently at the end of the day. Yeah.
I remember reading over the Pareto principle, and it was made by Joseph Giron or something like that. Inspired. So Joseph Giron, I think in the 80s, was looking over Italian landlords and land distribution. And I think it was somewhere along those lines that 20% of people own 80% of the land. And it translated that into Pareto's principle. And from there we have Pareto's charts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Used a lot in QA and quality assurance and by a lot of engineers alike. So I guess in terms of books, I'm also a self-improvement type of guy. I do knock some heads sometimes for people who just read fantasy, but and I get nagged on a bit about that too. But some books I've read and I enjoy is Mark Mason's The Subtle Art.
Nice. I'll check it out.
And Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Right. I've heard of that one. Cool.
And thanks for the podcast. I have to take a look at it. All right.
No, definitely. It's one of the best in my opinion. It's good.
Okay. So
specifically, there's one episode that's really cool that you must listen to. It's the guy that founded Duolingo. He also came up with CAPTCHA codes.
Nice.
And the story behind CAPTCHA codes is mind blowing to me. So just that, like, definitely check that out and how they came to be.
Okay, I will. So where do you envision yourself 5 years from now? I know people usually do 3-year plans, 5-year plans. In this case, what would be yours? Or how would that look like?
Yeah. So I think for me, I think something I definitely would want to, because where I am right now, I sort of joined in the middle of things, actually in the middle of something that came to an end, and now we're starting sort of a new project from the beginning. So towards this, it started at its conception, and now I sort of want to see that through and be a direct just contributor towards that development, be able to like witness its development and then finally its launch. So being able to see that all the way through is something I definitely want to be there for. So that would happen sometimes within the next 5 years, as you mentioned. So being able to see that and making sure that along the way I feel fulfilled in what I'm doing, because I think that's the most important part. Because if you don't, I guess you lose all sorts of motivation, and that's where things go downhill. So it's important to stay engaged, motivated in what you're doing, and then at the same time, just making sure you do what's making you happy.
Yeah, you love it or leave it, right?
Yeah.